Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the Mad Mel podcast. My name is Mel and I am a yarn dyer living on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. If you're new here, then hello, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, you may notice I am in a different location. And if you haven't been following my Vlogtober this year, then I'm actually staying at my mum's for a few days, or I have been. I'll be going home tomorrow. Just to house sit while she's away and to give me a chance to get off the island and have a bit of a break, really. So this is why I'm sitting in my mum's living room at the moment. And it has only been 2 weeks since my last podcast, or by the time this goes out it might be nearly 3, 2.5, 3, but I would have recorded it only 2 weeks after my previous podcast. I don't know, knitting mojo at autumn winter time is really going at it at the moment, and being away as well means I had more leisure time to just, you know, sit around, watch TV and get a lot of knitting done and things like that. So I have one finished object and I have two works in progress, one of which you won't have seen on the podcast, one of my new whips. So first up is my finished object, which is these autumnal socks. I know I think I had finished one of these up to the cuff on my last episode. I couldn't swear to it, but I've completed the whole pair. I do have a second one here. I'm not just, you know, showing one. And yeah, I have done a pattern for this, which I will show in a moment, but it is the leather socks. And I have used contrast toes and heels for it, and I have added in the pattern for the leather socks into my usual recipe for my vanilla socks. Oh, that's fluff. So I have done Turkish cast on, I've done toe up, I've done a eye of partridge slip stitch heel, I've done 2x2 rib, and I have done the gusset as well. So like I said, the pattern is the leather socks by Fibre Designs, and this is a free pattern, but it's supposed to have this kind of central increase decrease on the base of the heel, which I haven't done, and it's supposed to be top down, but I've just done it toe up, and it's a really simple 5-row pattern repeat. Just basically, it has, I don't know if this is going to show very well on camera, I'll try with the other sock, but it has rows of stockinette and garter, and then these slip stitches in between when you're doing the garter. The yarn I've used for the toes and heels is looking very glowy on camera. It's not quite so glowy in real life. It is Cascade Heritage in Italian plum, and the main body of the sock is done in King Cole Zigzag in the colourway Autumn Glory. King Cole Zigzag in Autumn Glory, and I'm really happy with them. I can finally wear them now that I've recorded this podcast, which is great. But it isn't the only pair of socks. Well, it is no longer on my needles, but I do have another pair of socks on my needles. These are very autumnal, in a not overly autumnal way because of the purple, but the colourway did have purple in it, and that's why I wanted to do the purple contrast toes and heels. But the other pair of socks that I now have on my needles is much more of this time of year, and it is the, what is it? It's the 24th, which means tomorrow is the start of Halloween week. I know October is Halloween month, but Halloween week is something else entirely. It's like, let's do everything Halloweeny, pack it all in there. Might just have to dress up and prance around the house in some long black dress or something like that at some point this week, just because I can. My first work in progress is said sock, and you can only really see the part of this. Oh, I've dropped stitches, bear with me. Oh, that's because there's only 2 stitches on one of the needles. I am knitting Halloween socks. I know, Halloween socks. Halloween socks. And these have colour work on the heels, but I've only done a little bit, so it doesn't really show very well at the moment. It's the bottom of a jack-o'-lantern. The pattern is the Hubble Bubble Double Trouble socks, which have these jack-o'-lantern heel, colourwork heels, and you can use either colour. I'm going to be doing like the pattern the photo shows, which is one with black contrast toes and heels with an orange jack-o'-lantern, and another one with orange contrast toes and heels with a black jack-o'-lantern. And the pattern is by Surfing Ducks, and I'm really pleased with how these are coming out. All I've done is my usual Turkish cast on, toe up, stockinette, stripes. I'm just striping them. I'm not cutting the yarn, obviously. I am just kind of catching the float after two. There's like four row stripes. So after two or three rows, I'm catching the other yarn before doing the final row in that colour and then swapping to the next colour. The bottom of the sock, I have done, little focus, slip stitches. I have partridge slip stitches on just the orange stripes, and I've added some short rows at the top and bottom of this section on the ball of the foot. Now, if you've seen previous episodes, I have issues with merino sock yarn, which is what this is. Problem with merino sock yarn is it doesn't hold up very well. It's okay in most of the sock, but always wears here on the ball of the foot, and I have ruined a couple of pairs of socks before I realised this would be a problem. One of which I have repaired, one still is in my repair pile, but it's usually okay in the rest of the sock. I mean, it doesn't wear anywhere. Because I've used the black, which the black is just Drops Fable black, so it's just a standard, you know, hard wearing sock yarn. I haven't had to slip stitch that at all, and it's in the toes and the background colour on the heel. I have done slip stitches just on the base of the heel, even in the black, because that's the place where socks tend to go for me, just there on that bottom bit and on the ball of the foot. When I come to do the other one, which will have orange toes and heels, I'm not sure, I don't think I'll bother reinforcing the toe. Toes on my socks, I've never had a toe go yet. I have a couple of pairs which I think may at some point, but that's more to do with the fact that they're over 2-year-old, and I wear my woolly socks like every day unless it's baking hot. I wear woolen socks all around the house, so the toes don't tend to go. I might just reinforce just a little bit at the right at the back of the toe there, where you kind of, the ball of your foot just kind of pushes. And again, I will slip stitch the orange stripes on the base, and I'll have to make sure I do the same amount so the socks end up the same length, because it does affect the length. Although with only being alternate stripes, it won't be quite so bad. And yeah, just like this is my usual recipe. I've done gusset, I've done eye of partridge on this part, but I haven't had to do slip stitches up the back of the heel because it is colour work. And because it is colour work, it is double thickness basically of wool, of yarn, so I haven't bothered. Plus, although I do wear my woolly socks in shoes or my Doc Martens, which is what I live in when I'm out the house, I don't tend to wear out the heels. The times when I've been, they would be getting a lot of wear is when it's the very few times I wouldn't be wearing woolen socks. So for example, if I was out at Club Size, or if I was at roller derby, or somewhere where I'd be wearing trainers, or what do they call them, sneakers, I wouldn't be wearing these, especially in my skate boots, because I find I can't get enough grip. They're too padded, so the boot doesn't grip properly to your foot, so I tend to wear just regular cotton socks for that. So the back of my heels don't wear out, and I wouldn't wear these for walking over the hills in probably either, which I haven't done for quite a while. Again, just normal type of walks, in which case I'd still be wearing my Doc Martens. So I haven't bothered, well obviously I can't if I'm doing colour work on the back, but it's not going to be a problem. The sock obviously carries on stripes, and I haven't decided what type of ribbing to do yet. Probably 2x2 rib to make it very similar to the thickness of the stripes on the sock. And yeah, I'm looking forward to wearing these on Halloween. That'd be really fun with some, I don't know, a long black witchy skirt or something, and just, I don't know, a bit of fun. I'm definitely going to have to dress up at some point in this next coming week, which if you watch Vlogtober you'll probably see. The thing is with the Vlogtober videos and Vlogmas is you don't have to watch them if you're not interested in that. You don't miss anything that from the podcast. Although obviously I've shown glimpses of knitting and bits and bobs, but I always show on the podcast what I've done, so you're not really missing anything if you choose not to watch the Vlogtober videos. But they're there anyway. So that is my first whip. I don't think there's anything else to say about it. Same as the Autumn Glory socks, my usual 2.25mm needle. I'm using magic loop to do the heel and for the toes, and I use a 9-inch circular 2.25 to do the main body of the sock. I tend to use 2.25 on commercial sock yarns. I don't think I mentioned the orange is actually Cascade Heritage in appropriately named Pumpkin, I believe, but it is in merino, whereas the black is not. Commercial sock yarns tend to be a little fluffier, so I'll still use my 2.25mm needle for those. But if I was using a indie yarn dyed yarn, then I tend to drop down to a 2mm because it tends to be a little less fuzzy and a little slightly finer. And I like to knit a 2mm on those to make a slightly denser fabric. My second and final whip and final object actually for this episode, it should be very relatively short for me actually, is the Oh My Godness sweater, which is flying along. I have one sleeve knit, I just have to knit the cuff on the first sleeve. I hesitate to say the word sweater because I've decided to steek this, if I show it. Because when I had finished the yoke and had knit a couple of inches, oh, it has alpaca in it, so it's all leaking. When I knit a couple of inches under the arms and I tried it on, I realised it was way too big for my liking for a sweater. Or for a yoked sweater, because yoked sweaters tend to hang a certain way. They tend to be a little more bulky in the shoulders compared to a set-in sleeve sweater or a raglan sweater, or even a drop sleeve sweater. A drop sleeve sweater looks really good oversized, and a raglan can do as well, like my oversized Bly cardigan does. But a yoked sweater, I find on me it just makes me look broad in the shoulders, and I didn't like it. I didn't like one bit, and I didn't know what to do. Basically I could have took out sort of like this much of the sweater easily and it still have been oversized. I could have took out a couple of pattern repeats. So I left it overnight and had to think about it, and I considered frogging out the entire yoke. Didn't really want to do that. And what I decided to do instead was turn it into a cardigan, because cardigans hang different. Like this one, this is a cardigan, it hangs different than a sweater does. Even though it is a yoked sweater, it will still kind of drape, because this front being open, it kind of pulls it down and stretches out the back a little more. So what I did was I picked up and frogged out the collar and re-knit it with a gap here. I knit back and forth, and these stitches have now become the steek stitches. I mean, ideally you would have a column of purl stitches at either side of your steek, center steek, but obviously I couldn't do that because I'd already knit the yoke at that point. But it's not the end of the world. It doesn't really matter that much. So fortunately I have this gap between those two pumpkins right in the center of my yoke. I guess if I'd done one less pattern repeat, it would be off center and I would have a pumpkin in the middle. If I'd done that, I'm not sure what I would have done. I could have made the steek wider, I suppose, so I would pick up the stitches just either side of the pumpkin for my button band, and that get rid of that entire pumpkin in the center. Probably I would have done that actually, but because mine is between two pumpkins, what I will do is I will pick up the stitches just either side of these pumpkins, and obviously all the way up and down the sweater, and these center ones will become the middle of the steek, and I will just use my sewing machine to run zigzag stitch down either side of that steek and cut up the middle and fold them back and tack them down. So I think it'll make a really nice cardigan. I've made it sort of hip crease length, which is a good length to wear with dresses and tunics like I have on. It'll be pretty much very similar to what I'm wearing at the moment, which is my Fier cardigan by Fibre Tales. I have done a 1x1 rib on the bottom, and it is around 2.5 inches ish. I have knit full length sleeves. I think the pattern was the 3/4 sleeves. I will show the pattern in a moment, but I've knit full length sleeves because I found with this cardigan I really liked the full length sleeves. I always used to be a 3/4 sleeves, but I think for a cardigan you can wear sort of autumnal time, you just want to be kind of cozy. So that means I will have a plain light coloured cardigan I can wear with patterned clothes, and a patterned light coloured cardigan I can wear with plain dresses and such like, which will be brilliant. So I will do 1x1 rib on the cuff. I'm not sure how long, maybe 1.5 inches. I don't know, I'll try it on, see how I feel. And I have the button bands to do and the second sleeve to do, but this is flying along. This should hopefully be finished for Halloween, by Halloween. I'd like it done by then. I'm not going to wear it at Halloween, but you know, it's got pumpkins on, so it would be nice. Gives me, I work well to a deadline, so it kind of gives me something to aim for. The pattern I'm using, like I said, is the, oh no, it's not Oh My Goodness, it's Hello Gorgeous. Oh, that's because I have a yarn by Mothy and the Squid called Oh My Goodness. It's Hello Gorgeous, and it is by Lacey Williamson of Windward Farm. And I believe this is her first knitting design, and I got this quite early on when she released it, and I had to tweak the pattern, but then she released an update a couple of weeks later with the larger sizes tweaked, and was much better, was close to what I'd already calculated out myself. Although she has got this as a recommended 0 to 2 inches of negative ease. I obviously didn't knit it with negative ease, I've knit it with positive ease. In fact, too much positive ease. But it's going to be nice as a cardigan. I have used, what have I used? I've used 4mm knitting needles for the body, 3.5mm needles for the rib, and I am working at a gauge of 24 stitches, 28 rows per 4 inch. The pattern called for 21 stitches and 32 rows per 4 inch, but even on a 4mm needle I couldn't get that gauge, and I didn't want to go up to 4.5 or 5mm needle, as this yarn is a fingering weight, although I'd argue almost a sport weight. It would have been too open, and I didn't like, I swatched a bit bigger and I didn't like it at all. So I just took that into account and made a bigger size, and obviously much too big a size, to account for that, of using a 24 stitch gauge, which is kind of that is my standard stitch gauge for fingering weight. The yarns that I've used are mostly leftovers and mostly alpaca based. So they're all tangled up in here. For the main body of the sweater, I've used Drops Node in colour 07, which is this kind of a cool light beigey brown. And for the other yarns, for the yoke, I've used 3 in a slightly different base. I used Drops Flora base. Oh, can't see the label very well on that one. Drops Flora. And I used colour 15, which is this green, left over from my husband's flax sweater. And some, this mid cool brown in colour 08. And this one, I still have loads left for the project I originally bought it for about 5 years ago, which is a pair of mittens with little mushrooms on. And I used this one, which is colour 20, peachy pink, which is very much a corally salmon colour. The flora is tickling my nose, but the flora is 65% wool, 35% alpaca, and the nord is somewhere, which is 45% alpaca, 25% wool, and 30% polyamide. So this is a fluffy sock yarn. Well, not overly fluffy, but it'd be very warm sock yarn. In my last podcast I mentioned this, and a couple of people said they'd knit socks with this or with an alpaca based sock yarn, and they come out really nice. Someone mentioned holding it double. I'm thinking lovely, cozy, warm, fluffy socks. Oh, they would make brilliant sit in front of a cozy, warm fire with a cup of cocoa socks. Yes, I'm thinking maybe got slouchy ridges on the end. No, rib. Squishy rib. If I've got any of this left over, I'm going to be knitting some socks with it. And I might actually, because I have that much left on that ball, which is plenty for the rib and probably a little more than I need, and I still have 3 balls left. Well, the rib on the cuff rather. 1 ball for the next sleeve and button back. Ooh, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have enough of this left over to knit a pair of fluffy cozy socks, which is fab. So that is all the knitting content for this episode. I know it's shockingly, well, looking at the time, maybe it won't be as short as I think it is, but not many items. I'm pretty relatively monogamous. I still have my Red Moon sweater on the needles, but I haven't touched it. I brought it with me, haven't picked it up. I've been focusing on these items, so I have that to do. And I started the Nightfall cardigan that I showed last episode, but I haven't worked on that either. So as soon as these are done, that's what I can move on to. And I also have 2 more that I can think of, pairs of autumnal socks that I would like to knit in November. Although we're getting up to December and Christmas knitting, I'm not knitting a lot of Christmas presents this year. I wasn't going to knit any, but I am knitting. I'm in the middle of knitting a pair of socks for my husband. I have knit 1 of them, and I have a second pair of socks I would like to pick him for Christmas as well, which I mentioned at some point. I think I've mentioned, which is kind of like a licorice all sorts inspired socks for Christmas present. And I'm hoping to knit a shawl for my mum for Christmas with some mini skins that I've got, that I was going to knit with the Mild Magic Sweater by Stephen Weston, and they're still too bright and neon for me, so I'm going to use those to knit my mum's shawl. And I'm, for Christmas, hopefully, maybe late, hopefully not, and use my other minis from another advent calendar that I got to knit the Mild Magic Sweater instead, because they're much more my colours. So that is the plan. Other than that, life stuff, like I said, I have been on this side of I've been off the island. I am on the other side of the water, on the mainland. I've even driven on this side of the water. Only the second time since I passed my driving test. It was okay. The roads in the Highlands of Scotland, in certain places, are really rubbish. I mean, I thought they were bad on Orkney, on an island. No, they're worse here. They are full of holes, but so I managed. I'm perfectly fine. But I'm going home again tomorrow, and lovely as it has been to be away from home and away from the everyday to-day stuff, and you know, just a bit of a break and being really relaxed, and I am looking forward to going home. I'm missing my husband terribly. I know it's so soppy, but I am. And my kitty winkles, my kitties, they're all very confused because my husband had the previous week, he was visiting his parents south, so there was just me and the cats and the chickens and the ducks at home for like a week. And then when he came back, it was only a couple of days, and then I came away, so they're completely confused. And then when I go home, they're going to be confused again. So not a lot happening other than that. We've been discussing via text the things we can do to plan for the winter. There's always, it comes to this time of year and the weather turns and we realise all the things we should have done through the summer months, which didn't occur to us at the time, or have occurred to us since the cold weather has set in. We could do with doing that better, or we're missing this and things like that. So we're looking at ways to make the house, the cottage, warmer. We have a cottage that we've been renovating for like 10 years, but there's certain bits that aren't finished. But during a renovation project you can't always account for everything until you've lived there for a while. So certain things we're finding we need extra insulation on the walls. It's just not warm enough, or it doesn't hold the heat. We live on a very windy island. When there's a cold wind blowing, it takes all the heat out. So we've been talking about that, so we need to discuss that properly when we get home and things like that. But other than that, not a lot happens, fortunately, touch wood, on the island, which is great. I don't think there's anything really else to share. I mentioned on Vlogtober, I think it was yesterday or the day before, my oldest son managed to get, he was knocked off his push bike the other day, Liddy in the car, and he's cracked one of the bones in his thumb, the base of his thumb. Oh, even when they're grown up and flown the coop, kids. Oh, it's never a dull moment. Other than that, not a lot happening. Well, there is, but you know, if you want to see more, you have to watch October videos. So I'm gonna leave it there for this episode anyway. But if you like the podcast, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe down below, and hopefully I will see you on the next episode. And yeah, bye.